Some of the most beautiful towns in America are hiding something. Not small secrets, dark ones. The kind locals won't talk about. The kind you only discover when it's already too late. Small towns are supposed to feel safe, quiet, peaceful. But some of them are hiding stories that would keep you up at night. And some are literally burning from the inside out. Number 10. Buford, Wyoming. At first glance, Buford looks like a rest stop with an identity crisis. A single building, a flagpole, and a few acres of high plains wind. But Buford isn't just small. At its lowest point, it was the smallest town in America. Population, 1. For decades, Don Salmons lived there alone. He ran the gas station, managed the post office, and was, by every official measure, the entire population of an unincorporated American town. He plowed the roads, paid the taxes, and kept the lights on. When asked why he stayed, he said it was home. In 2012, he put the entire town up for auction. The winning bid was $900,000. The buyer flew in from Vietnam, renamed it Fin Deli Town Buford, and tried to turn it into a coffee brand. That didn't last. Today, Buford still exists, technically. It sits at 8,000 feet on Interstate 80, windswept and quiet, passed by thousands of drivers every day who don't realize they just drove through an entire town. The unsettling part isn't that it's empty, it's that it kept going away. And that's just number 10. Number 9, Skagway, Alaska. In summer, Skagway is genuinely stunning. Mountains, glaciers, crisp air, the kind of scenery that ends up on travel magazine covers. Come back in winter, and you're in a completely different place. The sun doesn't just set early, it barely shows up. For weeks at a time, daylight is reduced to a few dim hours, sometimes less. Temperatures plunge. The tourist boats stop coming, and a town that felt vibrant and full of life starts to feel like the edge of the world. Locals describe what happens to people who aren't prepared for it. Paranoia, erratic sleep, difficulty thinking clearly. Some report mild hallucination, not from anything supernatural, just from weeks of near total darkness and the particular kind of isolation that comes with being cut off from the rest of the world. Imagine waking up at 10 a.m. and it's still pitch black. By 2 p.m., the light is already fading again. Then you do it again tomorrow, and the day after that, for over 60 days. The town itself isn't dangerous, but the darkness does something to people, and not everyone makes it through winter the same way they started it. And that's still nothing compared to some of the towns later on this list, especially the one where the government basically erased the entire town. Number 8, Mineral Wells, Texas. A century ago, Mineral Wells was a destination. People traveled from across the country to drink the local spring water, which was believed to have healing properties, curing everything from arthritis to mental illness. The town boomed. Hotels went up. Celebrities visited. For a few decades, Mineral Wells was one of the most talked about places in Texas. Then the tourists stopped coming. The money dried up, and the town was left with something it hadn't planned for: a massive, empty, deteriorating hotel right in the middle of everything. The Baker Hotel closed in 1972. It's been sitting there ever since. 14 stories of crumbling grandeur that locals can't seem to sell, demolish, or fully ignore. And according to a long list of visitors, it's not exactly empty. Footsteps in sealed-off corridors, voices in rooms with no one in them, lights responding to questions when there's no electrical source. Paranormal investigators, people who do this professionally and don't scare easily, have reportedly cut investigations short and refused to return. What makes it genuinely unsettling isn't the hotel itself, it's that regular people live their normal lives right beside it, driving past it to work, watching their kids play within a few of it, treating it like furniture. Maybe that's more unnerving than any ghost story. If you think haunted hotels are creepy, wait until you hear about the town that people say is cursed, and no one can live there for long. Number 7, Dudley Town, Connecticut. Most towns on this list at least try to seem welcoming. Dudley Town doesn't bother. Hidden in the woods of northwestern Connecticut, Dudley Town is completely abandoned and completely off limits. There are no signs pointing to it, no trails leading in, just trees, silence, and a long history of things going very wrong. Settlers arrived in the 1700s and built what should have been an ordinary colonial village. Then the pattern started. Crops failed year after year. Livestock died without explanation. Residents reported visions and irrational fear. Several people descended into what was described at the time as madness. Others disappeared entirely. By the 1800s, the town was empty. Attempts to resettle it failed. In the early 1900s, a group tried to build a summer retreat there. Within a few years, the project was abandoned, and the people involved had suffered a series of tragedies that, by any reasonable measure, was statistically strange. Today, the land is owned by a private conservation group. Entry is illegal. Trespassers are removed. The reason given is property protection, but people who've slipped through anyway describe the same things independently. Sudden, sourceless dread, disorientation, the unshakable feeling of being watched. No animals, no birdsong, just silence with weight to it. And now, we're getting into the towns that aren't just creepy, they're actually unsettling to live in. Number 6, Cairo, Illinois. Cairo was supposed to be a powerhouse. Positioned at the confluence of the Ohio and Mississippi rivers, it had every geographic advantage a 19th century city could ask for. Commerce, transportation, strategic importance. Cairo had it all on paper. For a while, it delivered. At its peak, the city was thriving. Then, through a combination of economic shifts, racial violence, political failures, and decades of neglect, Cairo collapsed. Businesses closed, families left, entire neighborhoods emptied out. Today, more than half the buildings in Cairo are abandoned. The population has fallen by over 90% from its historic high. What remains is a grid of streets lined with boarded windows, sagging porches, and structures slowly being reclaimed by weather and time. But people still live there. That's the part that gets under your skin. It's not a ghost town in the traditional sense. There's no dramatic backstory, no single catastrophe. It's something quieter and, in a way, more unsettling. A place where life is still happening in the shadow of everything that already fell apart. Walking through Cairo doesn't feel like visiting history. It feels like watching a slow disappearance that hasn't finished yet. From here on, the stories only get stranger, and the next town is famous for something people still argue about today. Number 5, Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Point Pleasant looks exactly like what it sounds like. A quiet river town. Pleasant, even. Then, you hear about the 13 months that changed it forever. Between November 1966 and December 1967, over 100 residents reported encounters with something they couldn't explain. A large, dark figure, described consistently as winged, standing taller than a man, with glowing red eyes. Witnesses included couples, groups of friends, and people with no connection to each other who gave near identical descriptions without any prior contact. Skeptics wrote it off as mass hysteria, misidentified wildlife, or a good story getting out of hand. Then, on December 15, 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed during rush hour. 46 people died. It remains one of the worst bridge disasters in American history. The Mothman sighting stopped almost immediately after. Nobody has a clean explanation for what people were seeing or why the sightings clustered so precisely around the period leading up to the disaster. Some call it coincidence. Others aren't so sure. Point Pleasant has leaned into the story. There's a museum, an annual festival, and a large steel statue in the town center. But underneath the tourism, there's still a community that lost 46 neighbors in a single afternoon. And a story that nobody has fully explained, even 60 years later. But the next town might be the most famous mystery town in America, and people still don't believe the official story. Number 4, Roswell, New Mexico. In the summer of 1947, something came down near Roswell. The military recovered it. Then, within days, the official story changed. First, it was a flying disc. Then, it became a weather balloon. Personnel who'd been at the site were reportedly told to stay quiet. Witnesses described seeing material unlike anything they'd encountered before, and in some cases described non-human remains. The government stuck with the weather balloon explanation for decades. In the 1990s, they revised it to a classified high-altitude surveillance project called Project Mogul. Critics noted that explanation came with its own inconsistencies. Meanwhile, Roswell turned the whole thing into an industry. UFO museums, alien-themed diners, festivals, street art. The town fully committed to its reputation, which is either disarming or strategic, depending on how you look at it. What's harder to dismiss is that decades later, certain documents related to the incident remain classified. The official explanations have changed more than once, and people who were present in 1947, military officers, ranchers, nurses, went to their graves insisting what they saw was not a balloon. Maybe it was nothing, but if it was nothing, the paper trail around it is unusually complicated for nothing. And now, we're getting into the towns that people say are genuinely haunted, not just rumors. Number 3, Savannah, Georgia. Savannah is, by most measures, one of the most beautiful cities in America. Spanish moss hanging from ancient oaks, cobblestone squares, architecture that survived the Civil War intact. The kind of place where even a short walk feels like stepping into a painting. It also has more reported hauntings per square mile than almost anywhere else in the country, and locals largely don't dispute this. The reason is geographical and historical. Savannah was built quickly, expanded often, and suffered through yellow fever epidemics that killed thousands. Bodies were buried, then built over. Some cemeteries were paved into parking lots. Foundations of new buildings sit directly on older ones that still contain human remains. The city acknowledges this. Ghost tours are one of the top tourist activities. Hotel staff at certain properties are trained to handle guests who report unexplained experiences, not to dismiss them, but to document them. Whether or not you believe in any of it, there's something specific about walking through Savannah at night. The streets quiet down, the moss moves in the breeze, and the history of the place presses in around you in a way that's hard to name and harder to shake. If you made it this far, the next 2 towns are easily the strangest on the list. Number 2, Jerome, Arizona. Jerome clings to the side of a Cleopatra Hill like it's daring gravity to do something about it. From a distance, it looks like a painting, terracotta and adobe stacked against a mountain backdrop, with sweeping views of the Verde Valley below. Up close, it's a maze of narrow streets, repurposed buildings, and art galleries tucked into spaces that used to be saloons and brothels. In its mining heyday, Jerome was one of the richest and most dangerous towns in the American West. Accidents were constant. Cave-ins, explosions, and equipment failures killed workers regularly. The town once had a reputation for violence that earned it the nickname, the wickedest town in the West. When the mines closed in 1953, Jerome nearly became a ghost town. Population dropped from 15,000 to a few dozen. Buildings slid down the hillside, literally, as the ground shifted from decades of tunneling beneath it. The jail moved 40 feet from where it was originally built. Artists and eccentrics moved in during the 1960s and gradually turned Jerome into what it is today, a tourist destination with serious character. But visitors consistently say the same thing. Something about the town feels unresolved, like the weight of everything that happened there didn't leave when the miners did. Whether that's history, atmosphere, or something harder to explain, Jerome tends to stay with people long after they've driven back down the mountain. But the number 1 town on this list is different from all the others. People didn't leave because of ghosts or disasters or money. The government made everyone leave. And to this day, some areas are still off limits. Number 1, Helltown, Ohio. The name alone earns the top spot. Officially, the area known as Helltown is now part of Cuyahoga Valley National Park. The story of how it got there and what was left behind is genuinely strange. In the 1970s, the federal government acquired the land to expand the national park. Property owners were given buyout offers and told to vacate. Most did. Some didn't go quietly. And when the process was complete, the government didn't immediately clear or repurpose the buildings. Houses, churches, and storefronts were simply left standing and sealed off. Roads were closed with signs that read, "Dead End," which, in this context, felt less like directions and more like a warning. The official explanation was environmental remediation. There were real chemical contamination concerns in parts of the area, and that part is documented. But the speed and totality of the clearance, combined with the restricted zones and the abandoned structures left to decay behind fences, fed decades of local speculation. Sightings were reported, rumors spread about what the government was actually cleaning up or covering up, or both. Today, the park is open and maintained. Most of the old structures are gone, but certain areas remain fenced off, and the official explanations for some aspects of the clearance are still vague enough to leave questions open. The town is gone, the name stuck, and nobody has fully explained why it had to disappear so completely. The quietest places always have the loudest secrets, and we've barely scratched the surface. If this got under your skin, smash that like button, drop your most unsettling small town story in the comments, and subscribe, because we go deeper every single week. Don't sleep on it, literally.